You are.
Okay, Southern Ontario, A Tale of Two Flyways. And sorry, I just got to get rid of my video panel here. Here we go. Okay. About me, I'm a geographer. I have a master's in environmental studies. I'm from Mississauga, Ontario, in the western Greater Toronto area. I traveled a lot during the 2 years prior to the pandemic. Since March 2020, I've really been laser focused on birding in Southern Ontario, and I live within a short drive of many of the fantastic birding spots in my area. Oh my goodness, the slide again will not advance. I'm so sorry.
Seems like we're really all struggling with technology tonight. My electricity just went off.
This has not happened before. Sorry. Here we go. I'm going to give you an overview of birding in Southern Ontario and then show you some of the species I've encountered in the past year. But I do want to say this is by no means a definitive collection of Ontario birds. It just represents what I've seen during the COVID year when we were largely in lockdown and we weren't able to go very far. So where in the world are we? We are in basically the middle eastern part of North America. The Great Lakes form a lot of the border between the US and Canada. I am on the north shore of Lake Ontario, just at the western end. Waterfowl flyways here intersect right over Southern Ontario. The Atlantic and the Mississippi flyways go right over us. And the Great Lakes are really at the heart of migrations of many, many species. Ontario is a birding mecca. As I said, we're located along both the Mississippi and Atlantic flyways. Our diverse geography here includes boreal forests, Great Lakes, and southern Carolinian forests. There's a lot of varied ecological zones, and we have almost 500 recorded species. And if you see on that little map there, number 15, Peel Halton, that is where I am. So you can see how close I am to many of the birding hotspots. I didn't go really far afield during lockdown, but you'll see some of the areas. I did get to Bruce Peninsula, which is number 9 on that map, but most everything else is within what we call the Golden Horseshoe, which is from number 17 around the lake to number 12. And I did also get down to number 11, Long Point. So let's dive into the birds. A few garden feeder birds in late summer of 2020. Downy Woodpeckers here, Baltimore Oriole, Northern Cardinals, we get lots of those. They're very, very common here, very showy. Blue Jays, red-breasted nuthatch, house finches, lots of those as well. American goldfinches, also lots of those and very, very showy. Purple finch, less common, but we do get them around. American robin, that's a juvenile. Lots of robins. They're very opportunistic species. You find them just about everywhere. Song sparrows. Up in August, I got up to the Bruce Peninsula and many, many turkey vultures. They are in southern Mississauga, basically all over Ontario. We have turkey vultures. Ring-billed gulls, also very common. Not quite as common yellowthroat, brown thrasher, yellow-bellied flycatcher, red-eyed vireo, alder flycatcher, ruby-throated hummingbird. These are all species that I saw up on the Bruce Peninsula. Now back down to South Mississauga, Rattray Marsh Conservation Area in South Mississauga. It's about a 10-minute walk from my house, due south of where I live. That's the Lake Ontario shoreline there. It's really a gorgeous, gorgeous place to be. We had American coots there. Belted kingfishers are always in residence, as are the great blue herons. Peregrine falcons are around, not terribly common to see, but this one happened to fly right over me when I was on the beach at Rattray Marsh, and very, very happy to see this guy. Palm warbler juvenile in the bushes along the beach, also yellow rumped warbler juvenile. Hairy woodpecker. We have some really, really large trees in Rattray Marsh, around the marsh, and in the higher ground. And this guy was very cooperative in letting me take his picture. Gadwall in the lake in the marsh. And off to Colonel Sam Smith Park in Etobicoke, just west of downtown Toronto. Double-crested cormorants are often there. Not quite as common, yellow-bellied sapsucker. That's a juvenile. Rusty blackbirds are pretty uncommon there, but I lucked out in finding a pair. Hermit thrush, white-throated sparrow. American robins enjoying the berries on the trees. American tree sparrow at Hendry Valley in Burlington. First snow there. Brown creeper. Excuse me, folks, somebody is not muted and I'm hearing a lot of background noise. Thank you very much.
Apologies, Elizabeth. I'm just going to turn that off.
Okay. Brown creeper, we get quite a few of these and they're pretty hard to spot because you can see the camouflage. Lovely little birds. And spectacular wood ducks. This could be one of the most spectacular birds that we get around here. They do nest in our area in several of the parks. Up in Island Lake in Orangeville, we're now into the fall. We've got trumpeter swans. These were extirpated in Ontario for nearly 100 years, but they're now making a comeback because of breeding programs. So it was really wonderful to see them at Island Lake in Orangeville. And there they are up in the sky. We also have Butte swans. These were introduced, so they are an invasive species, but the trumpeter swans are now giving them a run for their money, which is also lovely to see. Great blue herons are quite common here and very, very large birds. Sometimes they winter over in Rattray Marsh, and it's very cool to see them fishing. Here's Coots Paradise in Hamilton, and as you can see, the fall is advancing, and we're pretty soon going to be in winter. Juvenile bald eagles are pretty common down there. There's nesting eagles that they love these big, big trees we get in the habitat there. So there's always juveniles flying up the thermals by the cliffs. Mallards are everywhere in Ontario. You can't find a piece of water that doesn't have mallards on it, but they're pretty beautiful, especially in the sunlight. Canada geese are also everywhere, and especially on the nicely, neatly mowed lawns in all the waterfront parks. People wonder why there's so much goose poop. Dark-eyed juncos are also pretty common here, and lots of mergansers. These are red-breasted in the Lakefront Promenade Lagoon in Port Credit, which is a great wintering area for ducks. We got a pair of Harlequin Ducks there. It took me 5 mornings of going at dawn in the winter to get good photographs of these guys. They just about a half an hour after dawn, they would be way out in the lake where you wouldn't be able to see them, but you had to be there right at dawn to get them close to the shore. We have big rocks along the shore, so they like to roost there for the night. White-winged scoters are also around. Hendry Valley in Burlington, part of the Royal Botanical Gardens. They have thousands of acres in and around Burlington and Hamilton, right at the end of the lake, and Hendry is just one of their magnificent properties. You can see the ice beginning to form on the lake there. Lots of black-capped chickadees in that park. A few American black ducks. Very nice to see these guys. White-breasted nuthatches are also very common there, and they will go and hide their seeds in the crevice of the tree bark. Port Credit Harbor, this is about 5 minutes drive from where I live, and again another place where ducks like to winter. This is the mouth of the Credit River, and the Credit River has a huge watershed just north of where I live. So Port Credit Harbor, you were seeing here Trumpeter Swan family, as well as lots of mallards. Here's buffleheads, and if you get the sun right on the head of the males, they show this purple and blue effect, which is gorgeous to see. American black ducks are also right here, and I'm particularly fond of these ducks, even though they're not really that spectacular, but they just somehow call to me. They're so cool. LaSalle Park in Burlington Bay in Burlington. That's at the very western end of Lake Ontario. This is where the Trumpeter Swan breeding program has been going on for quite a number of years, and so it is really a focus in the winter for the trumpeters. Sometimes you can go there and see, 100 to 200 trumpeter swans all hanging out in this bay. Beautiful to see. Red-breasted mergansers, common goldeneyes, gadwall. Butte swans are also there. Lots and lots of Canada geese, and occasionally you get the laughing goose, which is a smaller version. I haven't managed to capture one of those yet. Red-bellied woodpecker up in the trees just above the beach. There's some very, very old trees there, so woodpeckers like it. Colonel Sam Smith Park in Etobicoke. There's a marina there where we do get snowy owls coming for the winter. And you can see they're not that far away from maybe 100 feet from all the visitors in the park, and lots of photographers go there to capture their shots of the snowies. And so it's kind of neat to see these Arctic residents when they come down to our area. And you can see a snowstorm is coming in there, and the owl is waking up in the evening ready to go hunting. American robins, of course, are very prolific in the park. This one's eating the berries off a sumac tree. And brown Bronte Harbor in Oakville, another snowy owl in residence there, taking advantage of some of the man-made structures for spying and resting. And here's one that's either coughing up a pellet or it's got a rodent of some kind, and waking up in the late afternoon. And off to Burlington Bay Canal, which is a winter hotspot for ducks. So this is where the great big lakers come in through this canal into Hamilton Harbor. And it's ice-free all winter, so the ducks from up north really love to come here to hang out. Lesser scaup, common goldeneye, long-tailed ducks, spectacular winter plumage on these guys. White-winged scoter, redheads. And up in Newmarket, we had this Mandarin Duck show up on Fairy Lake. It turned out to be an escapee from a private collection and was eventually recaptured and taken back. But in the meantime, lots of photographers went and got beautiful pictures of it. These guys actually live in Asia. Athabasca Pond in Oakville. This is one of probably hundreds and hundreds of stormwater retention ponds in our very large urban area. So here we've got hundreds and hundreds of Canada geese and one snow goose. We very occasionally get snow geese here, and also Ross's geese, which they're very hard to tell apart, but nice to see these birds now and again. And LaSalle Park in Burlington again, we had northern pin-tailed duck along with the mallards, hooded mergansers, a green-winged teal there in amongst a little tiny duck in amongst all these big geese and mallards. There was a herring gull. This is a juvenile first summer. Canvasback, red-bellied woodpeckers in the forest, trying not to show off their red belly, but occasionally they do. Trumpeter swans again. And in Hendry Valley in Burlington, eastern screech owl. This one's a gray morph. Downy woodpecker. And here's another view of LaSalle Park in Burlington Bay, and you can see all of the ducks in this little inlet beside the marina there. And there is ice on some of that water. Mallards, this guy was particularly photogenic with the purple nature of his head showing in the sunshine, so it's kind of nice to see. And there's that little green-winged teal. Amazing diversity at LaSalle in the winter. Trumpeter swans are usually squabbling and honking and making a racket. Absolutely beautiful to see. Red-tailed hawk in the trees above the beach, and obviously it was pretty good hunting for him. Very healthy looking hawk. Hairy woodpecker there. Humber Bay Park East in Toronto, we had an American widgeon show up. Hung around with the redheads for a while, and beautiful to see in the sunshine. We also had a king eider female show up there in the winter. We haven't had a male. I'm waiting for one of those, but female was pretty cool to see. She was diving and coming up with zebra mussels. The zebra mussels in Lake Ontario are an invasive species, come in the ballast of ships, but there's some good things about them being here, and that is that they attract the diving ducks. Harlequin ducks were also very interested in feeding on the zebra mussels. In the same park, hermit thrush poking about in the leaves. And overhead, a bald eagle, looks like a fourth year, with a herring gull just soaring overhead as I was in that park. Back at Bronte Harbor in Oakville, snowy owl again. This one has a kill on the beach. It's late afternoon, and so she's already been out and caught something. Few more shots, and then the sun's going down. We were all hoping that she would fly so we'd get some flight shots, but she was happy with the kill she had, so she didn't fly that day. Greater scaup in that harbor. Mourning dove. And over to Rattray Marsh. We're in January now, so we're getting snow. Belted kingfisher. Red-breasted nuthatch, and up to Downsview Park in Toronto, which is a great place for finding long-eared owls and other owls in the wintertime. I missed getting the barred owl there, but I did get the long-eared. And so very, very late in the afternoon when the owl is waking up and you get these big golden eyes. Just lovely to see. red-tailed hawk there. I was fortunate to see this one actually dive into a snowbank and pull out some kind of little rodent, and it proceeded to eat it up in the tree. Short-eared owl was in the adjacent industrial park next to Downsview Airport, and this is a big industrial crane, and this short-eared owl is just very happy to have nap time up on top. Northern mockingbird, there's a small forest in Downsview Park, which is where the owls and some other species hang out, and this mockingbird is right on the edge of that. American kestrels were there as well. Downsview Park has really huge meadows, which are wonderful places for raptors in the winter. And northern shrike. This is a very far away picture. I tried to get closer, but it flew, unfortunately. But at least I got a record of my northern shrike. And Carolina wren, beautiful little wren. And then we went down in March to Long Point, which is on Lake Erie. It's one of the peninsulas that sticks southward into the lake. So lots of species like to come through there. We're a bit early for migration in March. That really doesn't start until end of April or beginning of May. But what we went there for was Chandra Swans that start to come through. They look awfully like the trumpeters, but these guys have a yellow patch right between the eye and the beak. And so they are congregating, flying over and resting on the farmers' fields where the corn was harvested. So they're picking up all the little leftover bits of corn. Same thing with the sandhill cranes. They are also coming through and absolutely spectacular. They have huge voices and they're honking all over the place. So very, very spectacular sight to see in March. Lake Wabaucane in Mississauga is a very large stormwater retention pond up in the north part of Mississauga, and there we had a green-winged teal that was hanging out all winter. Really lovely to see. There's also common redpolls in the area. A friend of mine who lives around that lake had a feeder, and she had redpolls coming all the time. Sadly, I did not get a male, hopefully next winter. Credit River Watershed, this is in South Mississauga, and a few sightings from there. Beautiful mallard males and a red-shouldered hawk, and I managed to be in quite close proximity to this guy, so awfully nice to see, and I got to follow him as he was hunting a little bit in the dry grass. Over to Bronte Harbor in Oakville again. This is a fantastic place. Lots and lots of birds in the winter. Clockwise from top left, redneck grebe, common loon, greater scaup, redhead, common goldeneye, and red-breasted merganser. In South Mississauga, where I live, we have very mature neighborhoods with lots and lots of large trees, so wild turkeys like to hang out here. Also Cooper's hawk. This is a juvenile. I watched him for quite a while trying to nab a squirrel, but he was not successful. Hopefully he got a kill later on. Eastern screech owl in one of the trees about a 10-minute walk from my home. Henry Valley, Burlington, part of the Royal Botanical Gardens, as I said. This is just a fantastic place to be at any time of year. Red-winged Blackbird showing off big time, and he's establishing territory by showing those wing flashes and also attracting females. And it's lovely to see them because they are the pretty much the first birds that come back in the spring, and they sing all over the place, and you know that the warm weather is not far away. Cedar waxwings are going after last year's berries. Beautiful, beautiful birds. I was really fortunate to get this red-tailed hawk right beside the trail in Hendry Valley, and it sat on the top of a fence and did a bit of unsuccessful hunting, but showed itself off to me in beautiful ways. And that same hole in the tree where the screech owls are, this time I got the red one. There's a red and a gray that are always trading off on occupancy of this particular hole. And downy woodpeckers will actually come to your hand here. So cool to see. Common grackles, this guy was showing off his beautiful iridescent plumage. And over to Burlington, there's a lift bridge there over the canal. This is the original bridge, and there has been a new one built, but this old one does get pressed into service whenever there's a road closure on the big skyway. But the wonderful thing about this is that there was a nest box installed for peregrine falcons in the top of one of the towers. So you can go there and see the falcons. They mate there, they have young, they teach the young to hunt, and it's really, really cool to see them. There's lots of pigeons in the area as well as the ducks in the canal, so they're well fed here. Valley Inn Road in Burlington, that's the end of the Grindstone Creek. There's shorebirds often there. These are killdeer, very, very common in Ontario. They will nest in fields on patches of gravel, and of course they're looking for things to eat on the mud flats. Also in that same area, northern shoveler ducks showed up, and these guys have this huge bill that they sweep back and forth in the water trying to find things to eat. Black-capped chickadees in that area, and it's a great, great place to take your grandkids because they can get this hands-on experience with a few bits of seed or peanuts in your hand. The birds will come right there, so it's great for education and to get the next generation really interested in the natural world. White-breasted nuthatch, stashing seed in the crevices of this old stump. And in High Park in Toronto, we had a whole family of great horned owls. So this pair, on the top right is the male in an adjacent tree, and then top left there's mom with 3 babies in the top of this 50-foot tall tree. And it's on the side of a hill, so you can actually climb up and get some really good views of this family. And they successfully raised those 3. It was wonderful to see. Wood ducks are also in High Park. This is very late in the day, and so the color is a bit subdued here, but they're just gorgeous, gorgeous ducks. Back in Rattray Marsh, near my home, pileated woodpeckers. I was fortunate enough to get 2 in the same day, and they were both hammering away looking for bugs in the trees there. Eastern phoebe on the beach. American tree sparrow right on the boardwalk. Back in Bronte Harbor in Oakville, red-breasted mergansers. Red-throated grebes were doing their little mating procedures to get going with nest building and chattering with each other, and just lovely to see. Up in Caledon at the Ken Willans Resource Management Area, this is a place where people can go fishing. It's a part of the not quite headwaters of the Credit Valley, but close up there. Fish crow was there, and these guys are more and more common in our area. There's been quite a number of reports over the past year. This was the first one I managed to get good pictures of. And also in that same resource management area, ring-necked ducks, which are around, but it's hard to get really good views of them. They're pretty shy. Colonel Sam Smith Park in Toronto had this nice dark-eyed junco. These guys are harbingers of winter, and so when spring is about to arrive, they disappear. Green-winged teal there in the pond at Sam Smith. And horned grebes. Really, really nice to see these guys, not so common. Gadwall are also not so common, but you do see a few of them around. Tree swallows, very numerous in Sam Smith Park. There's a nest box program there, and so there are probably hundreds of tree swallows in that area, but they are spectacular to see. And buffleheads in the lake just off of the park beach. And in the Marina Bay, a double-crested cormorant here on the buoy. There's probably just a few double-crested cormorants hang out here at Sam Smith, but over on the Toronto Islands at Tommy Thompson Park, there are hundreds. Common grackle on the beach there was gathering nest building materials, including at one point a whole beak full of mud. Cool to see. Blue-winged teal. Unfortunately, this guy did not show his blue wing, but happy to get this anyway. Golden-crowned kinglet there. These are little popcorn birds. They just never stop moving, so I was really happy to get these shots. Black-crowned night heron. There's an island in the lake at Sam Smith, and so these guys are usually there, quite common to see. Belted kingfisher female and belted kingfisher male around that same pond as well. The island in the middle of the pond is pretty much where they live all the time. I'm down now to Grassy, Ontario, where there's a Wilson snipe that showed up late winter, early spring. We get these wet fields there, and so this snipe was reported, and very happy to get that bird. This is not one that's very easily seen. Also turkey vultures in that same area. And eastern meadowlarks, their habitat is these grasslands, and they are just spectacular singers, so beautiful to see. American kestrel pair in that same area. There's a nest box on these disused hydro poles, and this pair were making good use of it. In Bronte Harbor in Oakville, western grebe here with cormorants. The western grebe is really rare to see in Ontario. Also common loon in the same waters. Rotary Park in Etobicoke, not far from Sam Smith Park. Bonaparte's gulls all showed up, a whole flock of them one day. And little small gulls with these dark to black heads, pretty cool to see. And red-winged blackbird displaying in Sam Smith Park. Yellow-bellied sapsucker making himself his sap well holes in a tree. Brown creeper taking advantage of some of those same holes. Brown-headed cowbirds, very common birds here. They're a parasite. They lay their eggs in the nests of other birds. But still kind of fun to see them when they're mating. Caspian terns fishing in the lake just off of the point in Sam Smith Park. And And we have a number of old quarries around that have been repurposed as natural areas. This old quarry is behind a Walmart store in Waterdown. So this is a pied-billed grebe. Kerncliffe Park in Burlington, which is also a former quarry. All these quarries are on the edge of the Niagara Escarpment. And this here is a swamp sparrow. Great egrets in the Grindstone Creek Valley and Wetlands in Burlington. And a ruby-crowned kinglet in Shalebank Hollow Park in Mississauga. A blue jay also in that same park. And then we've got spring, so we see trilliums in the woods, white ones and red ones. We see bluebells and trout lilies and all kinds of lovely color in the spring. Kings Park Woods in Oakville is the eastern screech owl, red morph, hanging out there. Northern flicker, the yellow-shafted. Northern cardinal. Yellow rumped warbler, and so these guys are telling us also that spring has arrived. This is one of the first ones we get. In Humber Bay Park East, within view of the huge skyscrapers of the city, redneck grebes were nesting. And I saw this peregrine falcon named Darcy come take this duck. The duck was flying across the bay, and the falcon just swooped right in and caught her out of the air, brought her to this rock, and proceeded to have dinner. And Darcy is part of a breeding program. She lives on the top of a high-rise in western Toronto. And so she's pretty used to coming here to Humber Bay Park and getting meals. Darcy's also successfully raised several broods of chicks on top of her high-rise. So this duck turned out to be a female blue-winged teal, sadly. She fought for her life, but of course the falcon won. About maybe half an hour to 40 minutes later, Darcy was on the top of a tree, and she was cleaning her talons and then flew off right over me. So spectacular bird to see. Same park, there's a little creek through the middle of that park. Common gallinule was hanging out there, and also a sora. And very, very shy bird, of course, so you don't get a chance to get great pictures of these. Dundurn Castle grounds in Hamilton, also part of the Royal Botanical Gardens. A northern mockingbird there. Field sparrow. Red-tailed hawk overhead, and black-throated green warblers in the maple trees that are just starting to leaf out. Palm warbler also in the same area. It's kind of neat here. The warblers come in when the trees have not leafed out yet, so you get a chance to see warblers without a lot of leaves obscuring them. In Hamilton Cemetery, across the street from Dundurn Castle, pine warbler. And at Paletta Park in Burlington, which is just off Lake Ontario, red-tailed hawk was having lunch, munching on a rabbit that it had caught in the same park. Black and white warblers were all over that park as well. Carolina wren, blue-headed vireos, downy woodpeckers, yellow warblers. You can see how easy it is to see these guys with no leaves on the trees. It's really fun. Grindstone Creek marshes in Burlington, greater and lesser yellowlegs. Colonel Sam Smith Park in Etobicoke, green heron. And barn swallows, really spectacular little flyers. Common tern, a Another common tern there. And song sparrow. In my own garden, house finches are always there. Baltimore Orioles in the summer. Colonel Sam Smith Park again in Etobicoke. A blue-gray gnatcatcher had set up home right next to the pond. And there is the nest, a very small nest in the crook of a tree. And the nest is made of spider silk and lichens and mosses. So that was very cool to spot that. Bronte Creek Provincial Park in Oakville, there's eastern bluebirds nest there. We have a nest box program, and which I helped to monitor, and these guys were ecstatic to get a whole handful of worms to feed to their babies. Eastern towhee in the same park. Gray catbird. Really love to see these guys where you can see the red undertail feathers. It's very cool. If you've never heard a catbird, they just sound just like a cat meowing. So it's very fun. Willow flycatcher. White-throated sparrow. Eastern kingbird, and these guys are so cool. You can recognize them instantly by the white band across the end of their tail. Very fun. Blue jays, of course. Northern cardinals. And in Woodland Cemetery in Burlington, this European starling had a nest full of babies there. I think there were 3 or 4 young ones that it was feeding. Warbling vireos in the Hendry Valley. And great blue herons, of course. There seems to be at least one resident in the Hendry Valley. And it's pretty much there all year. Least sandpipers on the mudflats, and the picture on the right has at least 6 of these little guys on the mudflats, and you can see how well they are camouflaged there. There's another shot of the least sandpiper. And tree swallow over top of the Grindstone Creek. And Hendry Valley, you can see the leaves are starting to come out on the trees now. And the ospreys are nesting on a nearby hydropole, and they come into the pond where they are searching for fish all the time. You can see a wood duck in the background there of the shot on the right. So yeah, spectacular to see the ospreys, and it's pretty reliable during breeding season that you can go there and stake out this pond and watch the ospreys. And there's the wood ducks in the same pond, same area. American redstarts in Sedgwick Forest in Oakville. And Sedgwick Forest is neat because it's got huge mature trees, and it's also got a nearby sewage treatment plant with warm open water all winter. So there's a lot of birds hang out there through the winter. Same park, indigo buntings in the spring. I love to hang out in the blossoming fruit trees. And there was also a ruby-throated hummingbird. This is a male. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to catch him with his gorget flashing red in the sunlight, but nevertheless, just getting a male is pretty good. Great crested flycatcher. They like to hang out at the tops of the trees. Spectacular birds to watch. Lake Wabaucane in Mississauga. It's north end of Mississauga. It's a wonderful place to go look for warblers in May. Here's a bay-breasted, rose-breasted grosbeak as well. Spotted sandpiper on the edge of the dam there. Magnolia Warbler, really hard bird to photograph because they just like to be in the thickets. Cedar waxwing, all these blossoming trees there are very, very attractive. House wren, black and white warbler, Cape May warbler, and it's rare to go up to Lake Wabakane at this particular time of spring without seeing warblers. It's a wonderful place. Northern Parula there, chestnut-sided warbler, yellow warbler, red-eyed vireo, and scarlet tanager. We stalked this guy through the forest for quite a while before we were able to get pictures, because as you can see, the leaves have come out more now. So some of these trees are pretty good cover for these colorful birds. Tennessee warbler is hanging out in this apple tree. Lots of little bugs for him. And eastern wood pewee. Philadelphia vireo. Desjardins Canal in Hamilton, which is right at the very, very western end of Coote's Paradise. Pied-billed grebe. And mute swans were nesting there on a platform. Excuse me a minute, I just got a notification that my microphone is not working. In Rattray Marsh, semi-palmated plover. Credit River headwaters in Caledon, blue-winged warblers. And cliff swallows in a barn up in the Credit Valley headwaters. Bobolinks, absolutely spectacular birds that sound like R2-D2. Colonel Sam Smith Park in Etobicoke, we had the whimbrels coming through. About the third week in May, there was a couple of days where you kind of stake it out and find out what's going on, see the whimbrels and other shorebirds coming through. And there we have the redneck grebes that are nesting there and feeding feathers to the babies. Yellow-crowned night heron showed up there, really rare to see. And orchard oriole juvenile. Excuse me just a minute. I have a technical difficulty here. Okay, there we have a gray-cheeked thrush that was doing its best to hide in the undergrowth. And so this is about the best photo I got of that guy. A whole family of mallards, lots and lots of little ducklings there. Northern rough-winged swallows hanging out at Rattray Marsh. Killdeer having a fun time building a nest in the middle of the mudflats. Bronte Creek Provincial Park in Oakville, we had a yellow-breasted chat show up. And this attracted a lot of attention from birders and photographers because these are not in our area. This is way north of its normal range. So very fun to see that guy. Eastern bluebirds were raising chicks, and here's a young one on the right waiting to get fed by the parents. Willow flycatcher, cedar waxwing, yellow warblers, of course, they're probably our most common warbler. And great blue heron in Sam Smith Park in Etobicoke. Right in the pond we have an observation platform that hangs out over the water, so you can get really, really good views of these water birds there. And he caught a fish. And Wainfleet Wetlands Conservation Area in Norfolk County. So in the Niagara region, another converted quarry. Spotted sandpipers were holding forth there. And this is a female doing this mating display. Well, it's a really fascinating thing that the females are the ones that display in this species, and they might attract several males to come and breed with them. And the male is doing his best to not look very interested. Caspian terns were also in the lake in that quarry. And then on the Lake Erie shoreline at Bellevue Beach, semi-palmated plovers. Here's one taking a little flight. And in the same area, semi-palmated sandpipers. Saigon Park in Mississauga is a huge stormwater retention pond in the middle of an enormous industrial park, not far from the international airport. And here's a ruddy duck showed up there, beautiful little bird with a blue beak. Willow Park Ecology Center in Norval, eastern Towhees. And a gray catbird. Purple martins at Tall Oaks Park in Port Credit, right on the edge of the lake. Somebody's backyard actually goes to the water's edge, and they've set up all of these purple martin houses. So lovely to peek over the fence from the park into the backyard to get these birds. Windermere Basin Park in Hamilton, northern flicker. And so this was really spectacular. This guy was hunting on the ground and then flew. Nice shots to see. Black-bellied plover also showed up in Windermere Park. In Norfolk County, in the rural area, this is an upland sandpiper. So this is a farming area, and this guy was hanging out for quite a while there. And turkey vultures. Glendale Outlet Mall Wetlands in Niagara-on-the-Lake. This huge wetland was created right next to the outlet mall, and so you can go do your shopping and then go birding, or let your family member go shopping and you go birding instead. Very fun. Marsh Wrens are all over the place. They're very hard to see, these guys. They like to be far down in the reeds, but occasionally one pops up. So nice to see these. American goldfinches are also very common there. Hooded merganser, great egret, and least bitterns. I got this pair of least bitterns. They flew across the outlet mall ponds and went into these reeds, and so I just kept my camera trained on that spot, and they came out and flew away. So very nice to see these bitterns. Some photographers had been staking the place out for days and were not successful. Here's a least flycatcher around the pond. And a red-winged blackbird coming down to investigate the duckweed on top of the pond. But up in Halton region, about an hour north of where I live, Halton region has a whole bunch of connected forests. So all these different tracts, they have hiking and biking trails, and it's just a really cool place to be. Huge forests and lots of environment for birds. Song sparrow there, American redstart feeding a chick, yellow-billed cuckoo way up in a maple tree, indigo bunting singing its heart out. And we were looking for breeding evidence for the breeding bird atlas. Found it with a black-throated blue warbler. There's red-eyed vireo and also Blackburnian warbler there. And several species we saw actually had food in their mouths, so that is the breeding evidence. Black pole warblers too. Common yellowthroat. Northern water thrush. Swainson's thrush. Swamp sparrow. And yellow-bellied sapsucker. Erie. Great blue heron at a roadside wetland in Caledon. This guy let me get really very close to him. He was only about 5 feet away. Same area, Virginia rail actually had 3 chicks. I could only get one in a photograph, but the others were there, following behind, quite a long distance behind that parent. And again, I'm up in Bruce Peninsula on Georgian Bay on Lake Huron. Cedar waxwings were common over there. And on Sauble Beach, it's a nesting area for the piping plover, which is an endangered species. This one was sitting on eggs. One chick hatched, but was not seen after 2 days, so was predated. But there's a lot of efforts there to try to protect the plovers. You can see that this one is inside a cage, which is hopefully protecting it from predators. But it was kind of sad that the little one did not survive. Black-throated green warbler, female in the forest on the Bruce Trail, and she was obviously exhausted and trying to take a breather from feeding her chicks. Brown thrashers were all over the place in these areas with lots of berries to eat. House wren and an osprey on the shore of Georgian Bay, way up on a man-made tower, and obviously loving that environment. And we did see this dickcissel that was on this farm, private property, so we could not get close to it, but this is a faraway shot of the dickcissel, which is pretty rare to see in Ontario. Northern flicker, very common bird here if you're in the right part of the forest. American redstart, alder flycatcher. And back in Rattray Marsh in August, there was a short-billed dowitcher. Very nice to see. And down in Port Dover on the north shore of Lake Erie, a whole flock of black-bellied whistling ducks came up from Florida, and a mega rarity to see these here. And there was another one showed up right near Niagara Falls at a place called the Dufferin Islands. Hendry Valley in Burlington in late summer has the little wood ducks growing up. So here's an immature male. He's starting to grow his colorful feathers. Coots Paradise in the Royal Botanical Gardens, Burlington. Here's a late summer shot, and it's beautiful, beautiful place to be. Tons of habitat. And here's a great blue heron doing the takeoff there. A blue jay. And the very last observation of the year, juvenile red-headed woodpecker at the very eastern end of the Hendry Valley. Quite a spectacular little bird to see, and one would hope that it sticks around for next year where we could get photographs of the red head. So this is the whole shoreline of Lake Ontario west of Toronto. I've taken this from the beach at Rattray Marsh. You can see the city right on the horizon there. And so this is my hood. That's the end of my presentation. Any questions, please? And I think we lost Derek. Okay.
Oh, my microphone was switched off because
Okay, great.
I went outside and I didn't want the wind blowing over my microphone to make noise, just in
Right.
case I left it unmuted. Yeah, so that I was saying that this is an amazing presentation, and you have such an incredible richness of birds there. It's really really amazing. I always think that we have a lot of birds, but in the same distance around where I live, I would not see that many birds. So that's pretty amazing. Do you want me to read the questions from the chat?
Yes, please.
So are all these parks run by the province?
No, lots are city parks. The Royal Botanical Gardens are run by the RBG. They're maintained, um, but there's a whole mixture between city parks, like Paletta Park in Burlington is a city park. Rattray Marsh is run by the Credit Valley Conservation Authority, who also look after Island Lake in Orangeville. They also look after the Ken Willans Resource Management Area. So yeah, there's a whole variety of places. And some of the places I go for birding are privately owned as well, that I happen to know the people who own it or live there.
That was Hillary. This one's from Eric. What's your favorite birding site in Southern Ontario?
I'm going to say for ease of access, it's just about 20 minutes from where I live is the Hendry Marsh, the Hendry Valley, which is part of the Royal Botanical Gardens. And as well as Hendry, you can go with a membership to RBG. You can also go to Rock Garden, to Dundurn Castle, to Cootes Paradise, to Princess Point. Lots and lots of properties that are part of the Royal Botanical Gardens. And there, when you think botanical gardens, you think of places that are manicured, but this is not not like that at all. There are some manicured bits of park that belong to the RBG, but lots of them are just these large wild valleys, wetlands, and so on. So it's really fun to have that resource that close to my home.
Rosie says, nice to see a lot of commonality between the birds there and those in Europe, but wow, what a lot of different ones as well.
Yeah.
Someone's saying great presentation. Thanks. Any other questions, folks? It seems not. So it remains. Oh, here we go. When would you say would be the best time to visit? From Rosie.
Well, it depends what you want to see, right? If you want to see warblers, you want to come in the latter part of May. But if you want to see winter ducks and snowy owls, you want to come in January, February. So it all depends what you want to see.
Paul is asking how long it took to take all those photos. Were there any that took a particularly long time? They're all fabulous.
Thank you. Those photographs represent essentially the, I guess, the nicest ones from my year of being locked down for almost the whole year, right? And in terms of waiting, is that the question you're asking? How long did I have to wait for any of those birds to get those shots? And the warblers at Lake Wabaucane, you sometimes have to be really patient. But basically, you're there from just after dawn for maybe an hour and a half every morning for a couple of weeks to go and, just catch whatever is coming through. The warblers were particularly difficult last year because of, or this last spring rather, because Spring was late to appear, and so the warblers were kind of waiting south of the Great Lakes, and then all of a sudden the weather changed and it was warm enough, and they all flew up over the lakes. But consequently, they were a couple of weeks late to get to their breeding pastures up in the, further north than here. And so they were here for a day, ate like mad to try to recoup some energy, and then they took off north. So usually they hang out for about a week, but this time it was really only a couple of days. So if you weren't there when the birds were, you didn't get them. So for probably 2 or 3 weeks, we were out every morning looking for the warblers.
Interesting. Any other questions? What's the name of the local bird watching society? I may be visiting my niece in London, Hillary.
Well, there's probably a local one in London, Ontario, but I don't know it. I don't live anywhere near London. But in Peel region, we have the Halton North Peel Naturalist Club. In South Peel, we have the South Peel Naturalist Club. There's birding groups in Hamilton, in Toronto. So it just depends on the local area where you're going to be. If you want to get in touch with any of those people from those groups to go see birds and find out the hot spots in that area, you can get in touch. I guess you would Google the birding groups in the area where you're going to be.
Jeannie is also saying that they had a very short warbler season in Rochester on the south side of Lake Ontario as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And Mary is asking how you organize all those photos.
Yeah, good question. I have albums. I have chronological albums, as well as I mean, everybody organizes things the way that it makes sense to them. So,
yeah. I tend to organize my photos by where I went, and that way I remember them because I know when I went to that place I saw that bird. So if I want to find it, I know to go to that folder.
Yeah. So this presentation, really, I wanted to give you guys a taste of what you can see in all 4 seasons. So I started at a particular point in time and ended in the same season the following year. So that's how I organize this.
Okay, so I think that seems to be the last of the questions.
Yeah, I see that Audrey has chimed in to get the names of local bird groups. Google Ontario Nature, and that'll give you the list there. Yeah,
got it. Okay, so Elizabeth, thanks so much, and thanks really for going out of your way to support Learn the Birds as you have done for the last year and a bit, and we really appreciate it. And hopefully we will see you again doing something exciting next year. And,
you never know.
You never know. Yeah. So thanks everybody, and thanks for attending. We have one left. Don't forget, not next week, on the 2nd of December, we'll be looking at mimicry in songbirds. And don't forget also, the last Friday of this month and the last Friday of December, we will have Bird is the Word. So watch the newsletter and the website for information. And with that, good day, good night, wherever you are.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.